cultural history, I find that many of my students ask about media and history. Many articles, many movies, especially in current times, all address an agenda in a biased form about a certain topic depending on who had written it, and you don't seem to see that in Napoleon's Moscow campaign in Russia. There's a large degree of consensus on the event. No one really argues over what necessarily happened and who's to blame. It's all there, it's all factual. People argue about numbers, and it's very minor and specific events and reasons, but it's all really the same. You see that Napoleon broke his marriage negotiations with Russia. Russia broke the Treaty of Tilsit by breaking the continental system by trading with Britain, have all led to Napoleon's invasion, and there was very little debate about this. You see that Napoleon needed to invade Russia and he needed to bring them down. He needed to integrate all of Europe into taking care of the continental system and destroying Britain. So he raised an army and began to raise a massive army, roughly of 650,000 men, but he had to take care of the fact that most of his army was fighting the Spanish guerrillas and the British under Wellington. So he only took a small portion of his French troops, including the Imperial Guard, and he brought them to the Eastern Front, conscripted roughly 400,000 to 600,000 Poles, Austrians, Italians, very small amounts of Spanish and Portuguese soldiers, and he invaded Russia, and he went over the Niemen River into Russia, and he really wanted to win a swift victory, sue for peace, and bring them back into the continental system. He felt very confident that he could do this. He felt that he could win a swift victory. He felt his superior numbers would rout them, and that they would surrender, and he wanted to break the army in half. He wanted to encircle them and finally destroy them. However, when he got into Russia, they employed the tactics that Wellington had employed, and they fell back, employed a scorched earth policy, and destroyed anything that Napoleon's army could forage. Alexander said that he would employ policies that Wellington had employed, and they would retreat back into the interior of Russia, and that he would exhaust Napoleon's numbers. Napoleon invaded Russia in June 1812, but was unable to destroy the enemy armies as he had hoped. The Russian armies lured him into the interior of Russia, and by the time he reached Moscow, his army was down to 160,000 men, and his depleted army stayed in Moscow for about a month. Napoleon soon realized that the peace negotiations were going nowhere, and winter was on the way. So he retreated, and many of his troops were dying from the cold and starvation, and by the time he reached the border, he fled and returned to Paris, hoping that no one would hear of his failure before he could raise another army. This exact portrayal of the event is consistent throughout all types of media. Napoleon, a biography written by Felix Markham, recalls Napoleon's endeavors during his invasion of Russia. Markham uses direct quotes from both Napoleon, Alexander I, and others to reiterate the life experience of those at the time. We know how Napoleon felt about his invasion because we have documented quotes from him saying what happened. For example, Napoleon said to Napoleon's ambassador to Russia, "Bah, a battle will dispose of the fine resolutions of your friend Alexander and his fortifications of sand. He is false and feeble." Napoleon Bonaparte, 1812, wrote to Moscow as a documentary that also has factual information because it can be cross-checked with the biography, and since the information presented in both is the same, we can conclude of them that they are both historically accurate. Using the biography, we can also analyze many paintings, such as Napoleon's withdrawal from Russia by Adolf Northern, which depicts Napoleon's failure. Unlike other forms of media, art, like paintings, can be truthful and still have a bias. Northern paints Napoleon's withdrawal from Russia, which was an event in his invasion, but we can tell that Northern didn't necessarily approve of Napoleon because he depicted Napoleon smaller than he actually was. He also painted him on a smaller horse, and if you look at Northern's other major works that are about Napoleon, they are all about his defeats. Today, we have the great honor of multimedia. It gives us many different perspectives on any topic or event. Many people can take away the experience of watching an event as well as reading about it or looking at it in art. This allows you to take away more than just facts, but also how the people at the time felt and how they were viewed by others. Using many types of media, you are able to make the conclusion that Napoleon's misguided attempt at invading Russia led to his ultimate downfall. Thanks for watching, guys. Join us next time in Media and History, where we talk about Napoleon's abdication and return to Waterloo. Yeah.